So, it's been a while. Apologies for my lack of recent uploads. Stuff got crazy this past month and I haven't had a lot of time to work on video scripts. That being said, I'm back now and better than ever, so let's hop into this speed paint I did this past week in between scrambling towards Artfight's inevitable finish. I've been thinking about shape language a lot lately. It's a pretty common theory in character design and psychology, but for those not in the know of what that is, shape language is basically the idea that exaggerating certain basic shapes when designing characters prompts different responses to said characters' designs. For example, circular characters are often perceived as friendly and soft, think Baymax from Big Hero 6. Square characters are usually seen as strong, stubborn, dependable, and/or set in their ways, like Kronk from Emperor's New Groove. And triangular characters can be seen as dynamic, sharp, unpredictable, or dangerous, like Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls. I wanted to redesign the main two characters of Underworld Blues, my original video game idea, to better reflect the psychology of shape language. I fiddled a bit at the start with variants on their existing outfits, but eventually I just ended up tweaking their current designs to be more shapey. Thanatos, here in blue, is who I started with. I began with the base, a little model of her with which I could play dress-up doll. I recently came across some wisdom from a character design video advising designers to have a hierarchy of their shapes if they're using multiple of the basic 3 shapes in their design. Accordingly, I really locked in on triangles and rectangles for Than. Her body is made of triangles and polygons, sharp, unpredictable, keen. But her outfit turns rectangular by virtue of essentially just being 2 big triangles mashed together. She's still a little naive and a little stuck in her ways. She doesn't quite have the softness of a circular character, and the only circles in her design are fairly small to exemplify that. But she's not as volatile as her present-day design, either. In her modern-day design, I put a lot more emphasis on triangles and sharp edges. Thanatos in the present day is an amnesiac. She doesn't know who she is, and I wanted to reflect that in her stylization. Her base layer of clothing is still fairly rectangular. Even in her amnesia, she hasn't fully changed who she is. But the protective layer of her coat is where things get pointy. Thanatos wears her coat as a trauma response. For spoilery reasons I won't be getting into here and that she herself doesn't even remember, she's highly averse to being cold and panics if her temperature drops too low. Her coat is as much of a safety blanket as it is her very own armor, and it being triangular points to her fluidity around self-presentation. Thanatos will change to be whoever her conversational partner wants her to be. This volatility, onto Vermilly for lack of a better word, is reflected. I actually started with her modern-day outfit to figure out her most important shapes, then moved backwards to reverse engineer her flashback fit. Now, the problem with designing Vermilion is that her body type and her primary shapes don't necessarily match up. She's plus-sized, and usually plus-sized characters get the circular or square treatment. But I wanted Vermilion to be as alluring and dangerous as the fire she represents, so I had to get a little creative. I ended up using a lot of hexagons in her body. They end up making her design sharper and a lot sleeker, which I quite enjoy. I tried a few shapes for the flare and waistline of her shorts, but form-fitting ended up being the best of the options available. For her hair and sleeves, however, I went vaguely rectangular to show that she's not quite as unapproachable as she may seem. Speaking of rectangles and squares, let's get into her flashback outfit. This silhouette is a lot more soft and square in shape, despite being on the same base model. I did a few things to create this effect. The big tweak I made to her look was the shape of the skirt of her dress. Modern-day Vermilion has form-fitting, angular shorts. But the Vermilion from ancient Greece has a cute, flared skirt that softens up that angular nature of the dress's bust area. Her chunky belt also helps sell this illusion. It's made up of rounded squares that could almost be misshapen circles, and that's definitely on purpose. Vermilion may have been stubborn her whole life, but she was a lot sweeter and more trusting in the past. She didn't have those thousands of years on the run to harden her to the outside world. She trusted people, for the most part, and allowed herself to let them in. Not anymore. Finally, I organized my girls on a canvas together and splashed on some rough colors. Figured I'd just make them look cute and cohesive. I started with Thanatos' designs and then moved on to Vermilion's because I didn't really want to be switching like crazy between the different color palettes. But yeah, I used this like watercolory brush to roughly paint on some stuff, and then just a regular soft erase tool to get everything where it ought to be and remove any inconsistencies where they ought to not be. And yeah, here's the finished art. This is less of a proper, fully rendered piece and more of a design challenge, but I figured it might be interesting to document my process and my thoughts and stuff as I went through it anyways. At the very least, this hopefully gave you, the viewer, something to listen to while you made art of your own. But that's enough yapping from moi. Time to end the video. Comment below if you'd want to see more of this kind of process video in the future, and I'll see you all next time. Stay weird, stay wonderful, and stay wondering. Sats out.